Well, we have a special treat here at this point. Many of you have probably heard of secret shoppers in the retail world and so on, where people go around unannounced into a store and observe and see what's going on and then report back. We made a deliberate effort to identify 5 people to serve in that role at this conference, in a sense. Officially called Rapporteurs. Others might see them as voyeurs or whatever, but they were specifically anonymous in their assignment, but to just spend the last almost 48 hours being the eyes and ears of the conference, and then without any media editing, just share with us some of their candid observations. Let me introduce very, very briefly, because I'm eager to get to hear what they have to say. But let's begin by right here to my immediate left, thinking about the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Ellen Weisinger, who spent most of her career here as a distinguished faculty member and scholar, and then now in administrative roles, and right now as Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. And then, continuing with the University of Nebraska, but now at the Omaha campus, Ronnie Ryder-Pullman, who is a professor of industrial organization at UNO, and this is significant, director of research for the Center for Collaboration Science. A lot to talk about collaboration here, and she has a perspective on that. I'm going to skip David and go to Matt because I want to keep this within Nebraska, and then I'm going out of state. Matt Rizek, also from Omaha, with the Sherwood Foundation. Now this is interesting. The Sherwood Foundation is located in Omaha, but guess what? They have a position called the Director of Rural Community Partnerships. I think there's significance in that. So Matt will be able to bring us that perspective outside of the University of Nebraska, but still in Nebraska. David Proctor, back to you. Although David did get his PhD here at the University of Nebraska, he's now at Kansas State University, and among other duties and responsibilities, serves as the director of K-State's Center for Engagement and Community Development. Did we hear anything about that kind of stuff today? The last couple of days, and the Institute for Civic Discourse and Democracy. And then finally, on the far end is my good colleague from Indiana. Esmeralda Cruz is an extension educator in Frankfort County. Esmeralda was born in Mexico and came here at age 8. The first person in her family to graduate from high school, has now finished her bachelor's at Purdue University and is working on her master's, and I'm personally proud of the fact that in 2009, she won the Indiana Governor's Award for Tomorrow's Leaders, and we've heard a lot about young leaders and their role in the future. So that's the panel. Put it over here. Okay. I'm getting redone. Higher? Put it on my ear? No. Is that good? All right, okay. Well, let me just begin by asking each of the people not to speak in sentences, but simply, not that they're not capable of that, but 4, 2, 3 words that best describe their overall impression of what you saw, heard, and felt during the past 44 hours. Ellen.
Self-determination is a phrase I heard a lot. It'll be essential to do our work by fostering self-determination in rural areas. Can you hear me? I see some people my age going like this. Discomfort. We've been reminded several times that the university will have to be discomforted as we accept your challenge to change and connect. And similarly, if we do our jobs well, we will be exploring ideas with you that are discomforting as well. Long-term committed relationship, heard that phrase. This is a marriage, not a date. And I heard the phrase sweat equity. Each of us, we're going to have to form teams of groups and individuals who bring different kinds of sweat equity to the process. Universities have faculty and students and curriculum and educational infrastructure. That's what we can bring. And those are extraordinarily powerful resources, but they're not sufficient. We'll have to have other forms of sweat equity as well.
Excellent, excellent. Right.
So starting with the morning talk from Wednesday, the word intersection, where great ideas come from the intersection of different disciplines, which leads me to the second word, which is multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, which I think is critical. Energy. I heard a lot of discussion about what wonderful energy we have in this room and harnessing that energy. And then last, I think the discussion around challenge, but accepting that the challenge is a great opportunity.
David?
In terms of some of the emotions that I felt and heard at the conference included things like unbridled excitement, I think, tremendous anticipation. Just in the last session, I heard someone mention, which I think is a wonderful word, and that is audacious, which I think this initiative represents. And then just following a little bit with what Ronnie was talking about in terms of the intersections, a phrase that was used I think the first day, evidence-based pragmatism, which I think is a wonderful phrase because what it does is it connects the intersections of scholarship at the university with the pragmatism of the kind of results that I think that the citizens of the Great Plains are looking for.
And Matt?
I have a series of quotes that I collected over the course of the last couple of days that I think tell a little bit of a narrative, so I'm just going to read these to you. I feel valuable here. There is meaning and purpose. People depend on each other. Everybody can talk to everybody. I can tap into my strengths and apply them to make a difference. There is opportunity to change the trajectory, to change the way ideas are generated. We are in a different time. We is better than me.
Very good. Powerful, powerful. Esmeralda?
For me, one of the biggest things that I saw coming in since Tuesday night was that this conference is thought-provoking. It has made us think about a lot of different things and many different perspectives, maybe even rethink some of the thoughts we had prior to coming in. The other word I've been hearing constantly is urgent. There's an urgency to get this done, and there is a need to get it done. And just today we heard it from one of the people that were standing up here earlier today. It's a sense of hope that this gives not only rural America, but I think as a country, just because we know and realize just what a big role rural America has in the rest of the nation, around the world. And the last one is encouraging. I think this encourages us to believe that something can be done and something is going to be done about the situation that we're currently facing.
Great, thank you all so much. Those were powerful statements. I have to admit, and this is true, I had a dream last night, and on this question, I got in the middle of the night and wrote it down, because I'd asked them to speak in specific words, and they didn't, and that is just fine. But I had this dream that the words were deadly, boring, ridiculous, pitiful, and Neanderthal. And I'm glad I heard none of those. Obviously, I was a little insecure and nervous last night in terms of this, but that is delightful to hear all those positive comments. And I think it sets the stage for my next question. I'll just continue with you, Esmeralda. What was the single most exciting thing you saw or heard, if you can keep it to just one, seen, heard, or felt during the last 48 hours?
The best thing about this is that I actually heard it not only once, but throughout the whole conference. And it's just that people really believe that something can come out of this. It's not just one more conference you go to listen. It's a conference in which people have hope that something will actually be done, that their ideas will be turned into actions. So I think that talks to the people leading this conference and organizing the conference, that you did something definitely right, yeah.
Well, and also I think it's a shared responsibility for everyone else. We all have, we're in this together as well, yeah. But if we do all come together and work together as we have here in the last few hours, that will happen, can happen, must happen. Matt?
The very first panel that had the three young leaders, Ann Trumbull, Caleb Pollard, and Amanda Crook. And I thought, these are smart and passionate and energetic people who have a lot of options with things that they can do with their life. And kind of in this age when we have sort of societal ADHD, they have taken the path of commitment to their home and to their roots and to the place that they came from. And I find that inspiring. I think that is a huge asset that Nebraska has that perhaps other states or other parts of the country wouldn't have. The thing that's really cool is that while those three are exceptional individuals, they really aren't the exception, I've found. In the last year, I've had a chance to visit a lot of small communities around the state, and there are many people playing that catalytic role. There's a lot of stuff already going on. And you know, the good thing for the university is, there's a lot of work that you all don't have to do. And it's more like, how can we align and support the people who are on the ground doing a lot of amazing work already?
I shared that excitement too, Matt. Thank you. I think a lot of people did. Yeah. David?
For me, there were just many exciting things, but I think the most exciting thing for me was the keynote address by Fran Johansson. And the reason that I find it most exciting is because I saw his ideas played out over the rest of the conference, that there were just all kinds of interesting connections and collaborations being discussed, and so I just thought that set a wonderful tone for the conference.
I couldn't disagree with that either, yes. And
So I took Sam's charge to heart and went out and actually talked to people and tried to get some sense of what they were thinking. And one of the folks that I talked to was from out of state, and his comment really struck me. He said, there is a sense of community in the room. And to say that about a room full of 500 or so people that are here, and to sense the community between the different campuses, between our representatives from the community and the educators, the campus community, that is a huge achievement.
It is, yeah. And the fact that people from elsewhere said that maybe this isn't the way it would be in their state or country or whatever is pretty significant, and a real tribute to everyone. Ellen?
The most exciting thing I heard was this morning in a small group, and somebody said, kind of reminded us, we already know how to do this. We have a 140-year proven track record of having the university work in collaborative partnership with ag producers, and we have produced unheralded successes in the increase in agricultural productivity. We just need to take that model, what we learned about those partnerships, and apply them to even more areas of rural life. And that person went on to say what we need are rural vitality test plots.
I like it. Rural vitality test plot. How's that? That's good. What I hear y'all saying is that there is something special going on here. There's tremendous opportunities, and the stars are aligned in a lot of different ways to make this happen. There's a sense of urgency to it as well. I think we all also know that we have to be realistic, and that there are always obstacles and difficulties to be overcome. So let me give you kind of the flip side of that question and ask each of you to think about what you saw, heard, or felt that represents the most significant obstacle, barrier, difficulty that will be faced as this moves forward. And if you have any thoughts about how that might be overcome, that would be nice add-on as well. So, start back with you, Ellen.
I think one of the things I'm concerned about is, given the scope and breadth and complexity of the opportunities that we talked about the last couple of days, the needs that we talked about. If you accept my metaphor of the test plot, we're going to have to be patient while we fail. You know, experiments are just that. We try something, If it works, we try to make it better. If it doesn't work, we try to figure out why it didn't work and what to do next. And we're going to have to take that spirit here in the same way that, faculty members from the Department of Agronomy have done it for 100 years.
Yeah, not everything is going to be guaranteed to be successful. And that's what our keynote speaker said as well, France that day. I don't know how many times he had little X's up there, failed, and then finally it happened the right way.
To me, the issue is collaboration. I'm part of an interdisciplinary center, and even though all of us really want it to happen and we have the best support from the university, we run into some obstacles because the system, the organization, is not designed for interdisciplinary work. And we have to understand that and realize that the more interdisciplinary and across organizations, across campuses, across departments we try to be, the more organizational, bureaucratic issues we're going to face, and we need to be patient about breaking through those barriers and making things happen.
And I sense you're talking about things associated with things like tenure and promotion and those kinds of things that become...
Even simple things like, well, is my work here supported by my department chair who wants me to stay in the department? And even working with outside of organizations, working with big businesses, are they supportive of their employees that are trying to reach out to the university? Those exist in every organization.
Yeah, we heard quite a bit about those kinds of difficulties, and maybe we can come back if we have time and talk a little bit more about that. David?
One of the wonderful things about a meeting like this is that you have all of these very bright, very creative people in the room, and the organizers have asked them for their ideas. And there have been just tons of ideas that have been generated out of this. I think that a concern that I have and a challenge maybe that emerges from all of that is, what is the clear vision that emerges for the Rural Futures Institute? And connected to that is, and again, coming out of a conference like this where we have all of these voices that have had input, is do people, is there a danger for over-promising for what can be done out of the Institute? And if people leave here today and they go and tell their friends, oh, the Rural Futures Institute is going to do ABC, can it really do that? And I think that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, the balance in terms of making sure things happen, but also being realistic and not over-promising, and yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I think maybe we can come back and talk more about that too. Yeah?
Sure. So I think my comments are a little bit of the other side of the coin of what Ronnie was talking about. First, I guess I would say I've sort of taken it as a given that we live in just a highly interconnected world. We're highly networked. And the ability to really thrive and adapt and change and grow in that context really depends on our ability to have really good relationships. A lot of open relationships that are based on trust, where we can give one another a lot of feedback loops and help one another to kind of grow and evolve. With that being said, and like I say this really gently and with tons of respect, and I don't think it'll be shocking, I hope not, but there's, as an outsider, looking at the university system, which I really am, it's a little bit of a labyrinth. There's a lot of different programs and kind of institutes and different types of faculty and different types of staff and administrators, and from what I understand, sometimes there's politics involved. I really believe and would presume that a lot of that stuff is there and serves a real purpose. And it really isn't for me at all to recommend that that stuff somehow goes away. But in terms of the university really being an agent for change in a highly networked world, those kinds of things are competitive disadvantages. It makes it harder to have those kinds of free-flowing, very highly adaptable, quickly able to respond relationships that networks, organizations that thrive and grow in this day and age really need to nurture.
Sort of the issue of being, well, I think I heard you say everything from trying to figure out the landscape of a huge institution like the University of Nebraska, and then how nimble can it be in terms of the brave new world that we operate in.
And I mean, most to the point, I think, my concern or my fear would be that the RFI would become sort of like another corridor of mystery for people from the outside. You know what I mean? Of another layer of things that don't quite understand how it works and don't quite know how to build relationships with people in there that can be trusting and long-term.
Another corridor of mystery. That's a good. Okay, Esmeralda.
I think that from what I've heard, it seems like we're expecting a lot of change. And with change, a lot of people are afraid of change. They don't know what to expect. They don't know if it's really going to be good. They don't really know who it's really going to benefit. And just yesterday, I was in a conversation with a couple of people, and somebody said, there was this great initiative started, and it failed because people were not prepared for the change. And so I think one of the big challenges is how do we prepare people, the general community, because as somebody said earlier, this, should be community-based, and how do we prepare the community to be ready for this type of change? Who should it come from? Who should be the people informing? Who should be the ones within the change system?
Change is always hard, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's that one tagline on there? Change is inevitable, but progress is optional. Yeah. Esmeralda, why don't you pick up on that and share with us a recommendation, or it could be multiple recommendations that you might have as we see how this could move forward most effectively.
I'm glad you said multiple. I'm like, oh boy, I hope he doesn't say one. I just have a couple that I'm gonna, since yesterday I had a few things I was hearing just constantly. One of the big things that I think we should consider is that we talk about the sense of there's an absence of pride when we talk about rural, and how we oftentimes, even the people that live within the rural community, when we see children that have such a high capacity, that are very intelligent, that you just feel have a lot to give, a lot of times we even encourage them to go to the city because we feel like that's where the opportunities are. And I think that it is our job, I believe, to instill in children the sense of pride, and starting at a very young age, not wait until they're in college, but why not when they're in elementary, middle school, and high school. So it's finding a way to give them a sense of pride, let them know what rural brings to the table, not only for this state, but for America and for the world, and how they can be involved, give them a voice as to what sorts of ideas they have. The other thing is, I believe it was yesterday somebody mentioned, the rural face of America in 1950, and this was actually discussed in my focus group today, and just saying that the face of rural America has changed, and in many different ways, not only from the socioeconomic status of people, but also in the values and the demographics, and that includes obviously the ethnicities. And one of my biggest recommendations would be we need to become aware of that, and how are we what's our plan of action to make sure that we outreach to all of these different ethnicities, all of these different sectors within the community? Are we prepared to do that? And maybe think about possible partnerships so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and how can we partner with different organizations throughout these communities that are very diverse, so that we can make sure that everybody is on board, or try to at least inform everybody. And in the end, I think we all win for making sure that everybody is on board with the change that's about to come.
Thank you, Esmeralda. Your first point, if I understood it correctly, and that was how to instill a sense of pride among young people, children. Do you have thoughts about how to do that?
In Indiana, actually, Clayton County, I work for Purdue Extension, and something that we have is a program called Mr. Popcorn. And what we do is we go out to the elementary schools and work with 1st through 5th graders. And we do programs with them related to not only agriculture, but everything that rural means. And we allow them to see, that rural America provides a lot of the necessities so that we can even survive in the world. And having somebody that's passionate about engaging children. We also have a youth task force as a part of our city council. And a lot of this just started 3 months ago, actually. So taking into consideration some of what they have to say and making sure that we're implementing some of the things that they want to see, so that they see that it's not only a space for them to talk, but a space where they can actually do things.
I should just mention, since I know as well as the community quite well, a community of maybe 15,000, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Its mayor is 24 years old.
Correct.
Pretty cool, yeah. Matt?
Yeah, this one is kind of hard for me because I really, make a recommendation, I guess for change. And I really feel like, the people who need to discern the changes are the ones whose lives it's impacting. You know what I mean? And so it feels like, it's really not my place to kind of suggest. But I'm up here, I got to say something. And so the thing that occurred to me and that I feel like maybe is a little bit in the spirit of a lot of the things that I've heard over the last few days is, maybe the Rural Futures Institute can be a chance for the university to experiment with making itself in the image of community and of the best of rural community and really frame it that way rather than, possibly inadvertently trying to imagine a future that's in the image of the university, if that makes any sense at all. And a lot of that to me really is about this boundary, which can be really a leading edge between this amazing institution that has tons of talent and tons of resources and the leading edge of these communities that are the foundation of our agrarian cultural inheritance that we share, and that makes this place amazing and unique. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Let me go back to your first premise, which I think is pretty important, and that is, so you're saying, who am I to say we should be asking the community? The same point I think that Dennis Barron's mentioned, about 51% of the people need to be from the community. Do you have thoughts, Matt, about how that step could and should be taken in terms of getting a stronger connection at this point in time as the Rural Futures Institute moves forward?
Sure.
Just sort of the process, or?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. One, in my earlier comments, there's already so many really pretty amazing individuals in small communities all around the state who are experimenting and throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks and trying to build it off of it. And there's a real opportunity to stand alongside them and throw the university stuff at the wall also. So that would be one thing. I think some of it too that I've heard other people talk about, and which I honestly know less about, is that there's something introspective in the university or about the mechanisms of the university that make it hard to kind of breathe and to have those kind of interchanges with a lot of notable exceptions that I know about, but that's a theme that I've heard. And I had an interesting experience in northern Minnesota with an organization over the last 5 years where I used to work that really went through a significant long-term multi-year process of what they called organizational culture change. And it turns out there's tons of tools out there available for people who are interested in that sort of thing. They started with an organizational culture audit to kind of get a sense, some data of where they're at right now. And they worked with some people who are really wise about this stuff to figure out what types of interventions can we do as a group of people to try to, move that dial. And it was amazing because it worked. I mean, I really saw how there was a group of people who intentionally changed the way that they were in relationship with one another and with the people who they served, which was really cool. There's these social network maps. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with that, but you send people a survey monkey basically, and you get back a visual representation of essentially the social capital that exists in your institution, and you can see very specifically who's connected to who and where is there opportunities to make new kinds of connections. Something the Blandon Foundation talked about doing but never did, this is where I worked in northern Minnesota, but I love the idea, was give everybody a $50 coffee card and say you have to use this card to go only to have coffee with people you've never met with before. And it's kind of like, it builds off of our addiction to caffeine and channels that towards some greater good that has to do with, creativity happening at the intersection of ideas. So.
Those little gimmicks are those small first, what's the word, executable
Right.
steps. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, David.
Well, I want to follow up on the idea of 51% citizen participation. And if this is truly a Great Plains effort, I think that what I would encourage the RFI to do would be to convene this room with citizens from throughout the Great Plains and call it the Great Plains Citizens' Voice and ask them, what are the most significant issues that your communities are facing? And ask them for the kinds of, for their particular ideas about how to begin to resolve these big issues that they're facing. And again, if it is a Great Plains initiative with all of the universities, all of the community colleges, all of the technical schools, no matter what the issue is that is identified within this Great Plains Citizens' Voice, it is very likely that some institution of higher education would be a particular strength of theirs. And that could be farmed out or begin to be addressed collaboratively with citizens and academics to begin to try and deal with that. Two other things I want to say very briefly, but a second thing that no one's mentioned yet, and I want to make sure that we get on the table, and that is that I truly believe that extension is the greatest vehicle for helping address rural problems that we have in our states. And so I believe that I would hope that the Rural Futures Initiative makes it intentional in terms of working and partnering with Extension to address the big issues that are being faced. And then finally, going back to what I said a minute ago about Fran Johansson's keynote address, I hope that the Rural Futures Initiative will be creative in the project teams that they put together to try and resolve these kinds of problems, so that it's not just the College of Agriculture, it's not just the College of Business, but it's the arts, it's the humanities, it's the social sciences, and you bring these folks together in these very innovative ways, as he said, to try and innovatively think about how to address these problems.
Great ideas and recommendations. And on that first one, that idea of that kind of a convening, I mean, that's something that could be done by another Great Plains University, or maybe it's in
Kansas State.
Maybe it's in Rapid City, South Dakota, my hometown. Whatever, but great ideas.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ronnie.
First, building on the comments made both by Matt and Dave, what I have found is that collaboration starts with personal relationships. There are a lot of obstacles to interdisciplinary collaboration, and a lot of them can be overcome by building those personal relationships. So whatever we could do to create the starting point for those personal relationships, and I think conferences like this are a great place to start that. The coffee cart idea is another great way of doing that, but I've met people here that I would not have a chance to meet otherwise. This is where it all starts. From here, it's up to us to take those personal relationships and build a network and create the opportunity. Another issue that surfaced in our discussions was the fact that there are a lot of good things already happening, but the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. We have all these resources in various places, but not everybody knows about those resources. We need to find a way to put them all together in one place, at least in terms of our knowledge about them, almost like I don't know, for lack of a better word, a database of here are the places you could go if you want to learn about entrepreneurship and be an entrepreneur. There are several resources in the community that are available to you, but I don't know that people know where to go get them. I don't know that even people that know about some of them or even developed some of them know about the others. So collaboration in terms of the resources that are already available, so we don't waste our time reinventing the wheel.
There's a real value in having these kinds of hostings, if you will, where people come together and do that kind of networking and outside of the formal program as much as part of the formal program. And in today's world, then we can supplement that with a lot of new social media things. So you can have it, but you can have it both ways. But what I hear you saying is that this kind of a gathering, which takes some time and effort and so on, that was very, very valuable in terms of making those connections. And it's from those personal relationships then that you build.
Correct.
To once the trust is there and you know who the folks are and so on, it becomes much, much easier to do the transdisciplinary work, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Important, very important. Ellen?
The most intriguing recommendation I heard was from my new friend Richard from the United Kingdom, and he said the university should try to mainstream a fascination with and a commitment to rural vitality within and across all 4 of the campuses. So it should become a common topic of conversation, a common invitation that those of us who are privileged to lead the university make to colleagues across all the disciplines to become interested in and connected to and make an impact on the needs that were described today. I liked the idea of mainstreaming the Rural Futures Initiative across the campus.
Wouldn't that be wonderful if it sort of just became part of the DNA, right? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What are some of the things that would need to happen in terms of a small next step along those lines? If we need to think in increments.
Well, I think the ground has been plowed.
Okay.
You know, I mean, JB and Ronnie have made it clear that this is, in fact, an imperative priority of the University of Nebraska system moving forward. Harvey's made it clear that this is a specific focus and priority of our campus. I think people like me and the deans and department chairs and faculty and staff leaders, student leaders, can invent half a dozen small immediate wins that begin to signal to the campus as a whole that this is a priority. And you know, you can use tools that incentivize people to move in a particular direction. I have to tell you, I don't think it'll be particularly hard because I make the claim that the faculty at the University of Nebraska, by and large, find meaning in the fact that they work in Nebraska. This isn't true at all public universities, I'm sorry to tell you. And I think a lot of us are hungry to find ways that we can apply what we know and what we are passionate about to the real needs of the people who pay our salaries. So I think we just need to mainstream that idea on the campus.
You know, I'm glad you made that point because, at the risk of sounding, I guess, Pollyanna-ish, because I am aware that people, all of us have egos and rewards, recognition, and all of that is important. But ultimately, it seems to me, those of us that are part of public universities, whether Purdue or University of Nebraska, especially the land-grant university, ultimately have to see ourselves as public servants. And yes, the reward, recognition, and so on, but I was thinking of one of the presenters that was talking about just the value of then the importance of doing the work and making a difference. Just like the youth panel that first night, a couple said that the reason they like being in their communities is because they can see a difference they make. Well, I would like to think that that also applies to faculty at a public university. And I read a little bit about the Manhattan Project not too long ago, and apart from you can talk about the downsides of the fact that the world maybe is now at greater risk because of nuclear weapons. But that team, they weren't about rewards and recognition. In fact, they couldn't even say anything to their spouse, about what they were doing for 25 years. So we do need to remind ourselves that there is a higher calling, I think, and that is as a community of scholars in a public university, that we do have a responsibility to do this kind of work, period, I think. Again, at the risk of sounding Pollyannish. But, well, we're getting short on time, but we do have 2 or 3 minutes. Are there any additional thoughts, observations, closing comments that you might want to make?
I do.
Yes.
I really like the word rural sourcing when it came up. I thought that was a really clever way to get us thinking about getting jobs back to rural Nebraska in a way that we haven't thought about. And it got me thinking, and hopefully it will get some other people thinking about it.
If I may, Sam, I just,
Yes.
Like Sam mentioned earlier, I wasn't born here in the United States. I was born in Mexico, and actually in a very small village in Mexico. And for me, it's amazing, just the way life changes and the amount of things I've been blessed to do and be a part of. But just this initiative, what it's doing, and I know many of you have seen it already, and I know maybe some of you have been a part of that, but the fact that, in Mexico, where I came from, so many people started leaving because of lack of opportunity, lack of jobs, that there's a lot of houses that are deserted now, and there's nothing. And, you talk about what's going to happen to the territory. So I'm just grateful to see, that people like you are coming together and talking about this before the problem potentially gets worse.
Thank you for that testament. Appreciate that. Others?
I have 2 quick ones.
Okay.
One is innovation. Oftentimes, it doesn't start with a question about what's missing, but how do you make the most with what you have available? And I think of sod houses and post rocks, for those of you who are familiar with what those are, and a football team that's based on running the ball down the other team's throat, even when they know it's going to happen. These are all examples of when rural communities looked around at what they had and made the absolute most of it. They're already good at it, and I think it's something that we can build from. The second is have fun. Lots of studies show that we do our best, most creative work when we're having a good time. The cognitive benefits of simply smiling are great, and it's sad to think of how many people go to work every day, and it's a bummer. And we can optimize and leverage the relationships we already have by trying to figure out how we can have a meaningful, good time together while we do good work.
Yeah. Doing important work with people you enjoy is the ultimate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've sometimes done important work with people I didn't enjoy, and I've sometimes enjoyed people, but the work wasn't important. you have those 2 things happening together, and that's that's nirvana. Others?
I would just highlight the model that we use at Kansas State University, which is a very bottom-up, grassroots-based community development, where we try and work hard to hear the local voices. And I just think that that is a critical piece, or I hope it will be a critical piece in the Rural Futures work here.
Well, I just make 2 or 3 closing comments before thanking the panelists. It seems to me, as I reflect back on what the panel said in the last 48 hours, the genie is out of the bottle, right? We've really just given birth to the Rural Futures Initiative, and when you bring something that this important into the world, it is terribly exciting. It's also a daunting responsibility, to use the birthing metaphor, and raising that child to be all that it truly can be is really our next big job, and that is going to be hard and difficult and challenging work. But and I guess I would say, as we think about that path, let's be mindful of several things. First of all, let's be supportive, as we are as parents. Also, let's be aware that child needs to learn how to crawl before they can walk, before they can run. And I'm thinking of Roger Wehrbeind's comment about the way you eat an elephant is a bite at a time. I think we have to be mindful that we can't get everything done right away. The child needs and deserves support beyond the parents, and that includes a much broader support family of family and friends, and that's what all of us are, it seems to me. There's a need to be patient with the child. Again, I've found I'm a kind of an impatient person, and I've worked hard to get away from that, because with things this big, I sometimes feel both a sense of responsibility and a great sense of urgency, but I've really, on reflecting, have found that generally my work is turned out best if I go slow before I go fast. And I think there's also, again, using the child metaphor, a need to be forgiving, because there will be mistakes that will be made. And we need to be forgiving and use the concept of unconditional love on this kind of an effort. And we need to expect neither too little nor too much, I think, especially at the outset. So it seems to me that in sum, what we all need to continue to do is to come together, really, as a family and a community, to bring the RFI that we have birthed into adulthood. And let me just close by saying that I've been in this rural development business, if you will, for all of my career in higher education, which is nearly 40 years. And over that period, I've seen a lot of important programs and projects, some of which I've done myself, that I think have made a significant difference. I really do. That they have been successful. But I have never, and I underline that again, I want to say that again, I have never seen anything being considered that is even remotely close to what's being considered here in terms of scale and scope. And it seems if we nurture that collectively and effectively, that this baby at some point can be described with just two words. One is awesome, and the other is unprecedented. With that, I want to thank the panel and all of you for a great job.